Yo, what's going on? This is Relaxing LG_Jackson, and we are back without Spence this week, but it is okay. We are back. We were not here last week. I know y'all missed us. I know y'all wanted to see us, but y'all could have saw us if you would have followed us at the Highly Advised Podcast, Advised Highly on Twitter, Highly Advised Podcast on Instagram, and everywhere else. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. What's up, listeners? If you haven't recognized the voice yet, this voice right here is the great tribal chief himself. Make sure you acknowledge me 24/7. It's your boy, Lao Shay, Big Cozy, Too Cozy. I'm here checking in for another awesome episode of the Highly Advised episode 110, and hopefully we could give you guys a cool show.
What have you been doing this week? Just been chilling out, listening to new music. What's been going on? What's the update for the listeners? We haven't been here for a couple weeks. They haven't seen us,
Yeah. The past 2 weeks, I guess, since we missed last week, they've been interesting, just maintaining, I guess, just getting ready for school for everybody. For me, I already started my new semester of college. Senior in college, listeners, so I'm almost done. Just got a couple more semesters, then I'm out of there.
Out of the game for good.
Out of the game for good. Daughter's about to start school soon, so yeah, that's just what we got going on at home. Just business as usual, essentially. Excuse me.
Okay. Not too much has been going on for me. I made the move. Obviously, you got new backgrounds, new beginnings, as some people have been saying.
Congratulations.
It's been cool. I like my place. You came over here a few times. You saw what I'm dealing with,
Yeah.
Do you have any words to describe my new place for the listeners?
Listen, I would say it's a nice place, nice neighborhood. I would like to say it's very personal for Nigel, like it's a personal spot for him, so it really feels like it's him. A friend of ours said that Nigel's probably living more or less of like a bachelor now, with how everything is set up and all that. So shouts out to him, and yeah, it's a good move for Nigel.
So what new music have you been listening to in the past couple of weeks? I know like a lot of things have been coming out that we haven't had the chance to talk about on the podcast yet.
Well, there has been quite a few stuff. Nothing like super, hey, you must listen to it, but there's some gems that has dropped over the past couple weeks. For me, the first one I'm going to bring up is Meyhem, Lorenz, and Derringer's project, the Black Vladimir, I believe that was called. And I liked it. I thought it was good from what I heard. It's solid. I definitely want to give it a couple more listens. But what I heard from it, I think it's a great combination. I wonder if Derringer is going to start doing more collaborative albums, which I think he should because he's a good producer. Shouts out to Meyhem Loren. I do like his music. So I thought that was a solid project. Dash, he dropped something new too. For the listeners who are not, Dash is kind of early 2010s rapper. He kind of came around the time where A$AP Rocky and the A$AP Mob started getting popular, started getting buzz. Dash he was kind of more or less of affiliate than an actual member of the mob, because he was around A$AP Yams, Wretch, and all the other guys. He's also Dame Dash's nephew, I believe. I want to say that. So he just dropped a project recently with I want to say a UK artist named Sonnyjim. Sonnyjim is not on the project rapping, but he produced the project. So it's a nice little project. Actually, I have to actually look up the name of the project because I can't remember off the top of the head. But
it's crazy that Sonnyjim actually produced the project, because I thought that he was just like solely a rapper. I didn't even know he was a producer.
Yeah, I mean, shouts out to that. That's cool. That just shows that goes to show that some of these artists that's more like on the underground level, they're versatile. Not only they're rapping, they're getting into the side of production, making beats. Also, some of them are like A&Rs, kind of putting together shit. But the project of Dash and Sonnyjim is called Between the Lines. So shouts out to those guys. Um,
You
Pierre
didn't.
Bourne. What were you gonna say?
Well, I was about to say you didn't mention it, and I know we didn't talk about it, but Larry June put out a project recently, and I was listening to that.
Well, we kind of talked about it on the last podcast, Spaceships in the Blade.
Okay.
Spence and I, we already commented on that, and we gave our thoughts on that.
Oh yeah, I took a listen. It was okay.
Yeah, okay. So that's your thought on it, Spaceships on the Blade.
Well, it just makes me excited for the Alchemist project, just because of Breakfast at Monaco. I really enjoy that song.
Well, I was going to mention Pierre, but I'll hold off on him since you mentioned Alchemist. We could kind of talk about the Rock Marciano Alchemist project, the Elephant Man's Bones. I listened to it more than once because I like Rock Marciano. I've been liking him for some years now, since the early tens when I first discovered him. I think the Elephant Man's Bones is not my favorite Rock Marciano project, despite the Alchemist exclusive production. It's just I just think there's a lot of songs on there that kind of sounds the same, and there's also a lot of songs where it just sounds like Alchemist made a beat and Rock Marciano is like kind of he's not rapping on beat a lot. It's more or less of he's rapping his fly shit and he's saying some unique and clever things, which I fuck with. That's why I like him. I just don't feel like the production and the rapping mesh well together on this one particular project. There were some songs on there I did like, and there were some songs on there I definitely will go back and listen to and stuff, especially if I'm just or if I'm driving and I want something, if I just want something like smooth and mellow to come on through the car. But for those people, especially like on Twitter or whatever hip hop spaces you could find online, that were saying like this is for sure contender of album of the year. I just disagree. I don't think this album was good enough to be considered album of the year compared to some other projects that are being considered album of the year. I just don't feel like this fits that bill. Now, doesn't mean that I think Rock Marciano is trash. I definitely don't think The Alchemist is trash. I just don't think this project was hitting for me.
I listened to this project when you were playing it and we were hanging out, and I was just like, to me personally, I'm just not a fan of Rock Marciano like that, and I'm just not really a fan of his rap, and that's just what it is. I just don't like the way it sounds. So I feel like whenever I hear it, for me more or less I'm listening to it for the beats, just because I'm just not personally the biggest fan of Rock Marciano. Just his rapping style, it's just not enjoyable to me. And I know people like him, but for me personally, I just disagree. And it's not because I think he's trash, like you said. Like, he can put words together, and I know what he's talking about. I actually think he's actually pretty good at what, like, some of the wordplay he does have, but I just don't like listening to him rap.
And that's fair. You have everybody. I mean, that's the beauty of music. Not everybody's gonna like the same exact thing. If everybody liked the same thing, it would be great. You know what I mean? So I don't have a problem with that. I'm not upset at that. You're not gonna like everybody, and like with me, I don't like everybody that you fucking like. But
Sure.
what I will say though is I know that you didn't fuck with the Rock Marciano project. Did you fuck with the Pierre Bourne project?
Speak of it, another devil that I'm just not a fan
Devil,
of.
Jesus, just not a person. He had to be a devil.
I'm not the biggest fan of Pierre Bourne's actual music that he puts out as an artist, but I do think he's a great producer. I think that as an artist, to me, he's just at the moment right now, I don't like the music he's making. To me, it just sounds kind of like, hey, I can get this from somebody else if I really wanted something that sounds like that. There are people who are making this music that I would rather listen to than Pierre Bourne at the same time. But that being said, his beats are always great to me, so I do enjoy that.
So I think this is where we disagree. And once again, you have the right, or any listener or viewer that will be watching this on YouTube, that you have the right to not like Pierre and all that stuff, as far as an artist perspective, and that's fair. I can understand that he's not going to be for everybody to perform his music, but for me, I never looked at Pierre as a rapper. I never really tried to categorize him with the other artists that kind of make similar music, like for example, Trippie Redd, Playboi Carti, Lil Yachty, Lil Uzi. I never try to categorize them in those things because yes, they all use auto tune and sometimes they could get in habits of singing. I just think that I've heard Lil Yachty, Lil Uzi, Playboi Carti, and Trippie Redd actually try to rap at points. Yes, their biggest songs are not them rapping, but if you listen to their projects, you hear like they have tried rapping through, sometimes in their projects. Pierre, on the other hand, this dude just sings. And so I've come to accept that when I first started hearing him, I was like, he's not really a rapper. He's more or less of a singer on rap beats, essentially. And of course, all the beats he's performing on, those are his beats. And of course, he kind of changed the game with his production because there's a lot of his sound going on right now. So shouts out to Pierre. Now, as far as the album or project that he just dropped, it's called Good Movie. I listened to it and it's not my favorite Pierre project, but there's some beats on there where I'm like, oh, I like the beats. And because of that, it kind of makes me like the song more because I'm not expecting, once again, like I said, the dude's a singer. I'm not expecting some world-renowned lyricism from him. I'm expecting for him to sing on these songs. If the beats hit, then that's cool. So I think, and this is my last opinion on Pierre. I'm gonna definitely listen to the next Pierre Bourne project whenever he decides to drop it. I just think that if people can accept that, hey, he's more or less of a R&B singer type artist, or you can even say pop if you're more comfortable with that. I think you will accept, not you specifically, Nigel, because I know you're just not a fan of him, but for listeners in general, you're going to be able to accept him a lot more once you know what it is. It's like when you're listening to like Trippie Redd, Playboi Carti, Uzi, and Yachty, if you're expecting them to be like New York style rappers where they're rapping like maybe like a Jim Jones, Jay-Z, or any kind of echelon of New York rapping, then you're shooting yourself in the foot to begin with because that's not these type of artists. So
I'm gonna give it more of a chance. I'm gonna give it an actual fair listen, and I'm gonna try and give a better critique of it, and see if I actually grow to it a little bit.
Fair enough. Now there's one more album that came over that I think it came over the weekend that we should talk about. But before we actually I want to kind of switch it up a little bit and talk and ask you about your thoughts on the probably the most popular video that released over the weekend, Kendrick Lamar's "We Cry Together" video. Now, listeners, there is an actress that's in the song. She's not necessarily a female rapper, but I thought she did a great job, and I think this song is what it is because you have her included as well. Nigel, what's your thoughts on it? And also, if you could let the listeners know who the actress is.
I actually don't know the actress's name. I'm not gonna lie. I would assume it's the same actress from the album. If you could,
it is. It is.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm about to look it up as we're because I don't want to disrespect her.
No, I understand. So pretty much when I was watching the video, I thought it was
Taylor
cool.
Page. Shouts out to Taylor Page.
Shouts out to Taylor Page. I was watching the video, and it was them pretty much acting out the song like it was a play. That's what it reminded me of. If it was like a box play, and I thought it was cool to see that acted out like that. You don't really see that a lot. I think one thing that's kind of missing in today's music realm is just videos and like really good creative videos.
Yeah.
And that's different. Like maybe there is somebody out there doing that, but that's, I would say, the first time in a long time, if ever, we've seen a big artist do a video like that where they're acting it out like it was like off of a stage play or something like that.
Yeah.
I thought it was creative and I enjoyed it.
I like that too. I agree with you. one, I like the song. I think the song is a song that a lot of people can kind of relate to, even if you don't relate to it from beginning to the end of how the song and video displays it. There's certain parts in there that I feel like a lot of people can relate to. Some people can relate to everything, but there's something. And if listeners, if you've been in relationships with partners before, or even just one serious relationship, there's going to be a coming point in time where you will have disagreements and arguments with your significant other. Some people, their disagreements and arguments are more loud and brash than others, but this video kind of, you can't tell me that no one could relate to this video. I feel like this video is very, in the song, is very relatable to society today. I like, once again, I thought Taylor Page was like a key point to me in the song, because this is something that Kendrick can do. Kendrick could have grabbed any female rapper. I just think it worked well with Taylor Page. We have an actress playing a role, and she did a great job, in my opinion.
Now, the last album you were talking about before we had talked about that was the DJ Khaled album, God Did. And I listened to the majority of this album. And honestly, in my opinion, it just seems like it's weird. I listened to this album and I'm like, okay, like, I don't feel like there's much artistry in this album. It felt like, hey, I'm getting people to make songs that you're going to listen to because these people, and we're going to put it out. And here's how it is. And I know this has kind of been said over like the last few reviews of this album. Like, it just kind of feels like, eh. And that's honestly kind of the way I feel about it. It's like not much to it. Like, it's just kind of like, it is what it is. It's a DJ Khaled album at this point. I feel like it's cool. But people talk more or less about the Jay-Z verse that was on the song God Did.
Yeah.
And that verse was good. I liked it. I thought it was really good. You hear Jay-Z just talking his shit. Only shit that he can talk at this point, just because of what he was actually saying. But I think if any reason to listen to the album, it'd be for that song particularly.
Yeah, so I'm gonna repeat your sentiments on it, but in my own way, I think the album is pure mid. I think the album, yeah, I don't think the album is good. It sounds like a commercial, mainstream. What are those series of albums and CDs back in the day that they used to show on commercials? It's not Kids Bop. It's like,
Now This Is Music or whatever.
Yeah, some bullshit along the line of that. That's what this DJ Khaled album sounds like. It just sounds like all the top artists coming together on cliche beats and cliche song tropes. And I don't like it. I don't think it's authentic. It just sounds very manufactured. And there are a couple songs on there. Like, for example, God Did, that's a good song. And me personally, I think that should have been a Jay-Z song. You could have done without the Rick Ross and Lil Wayne. You could put those two verses on any other song on this album, and they would have been fine. Jay-Z did a great job on that song, so shouts out to that song, God Did. And believe it or not, an underrated sleeper song on there was the one with Quavo and Takeoff. Because listeners, Nigel and I, and probably Spence might agree too, the couple songs that they've been putting out recently have not been hitting. It just sounds kind of mid. We don't glorify it. Hey, these just aren't good songs. And for them to come out with the song that they did on the Khaled project, and I want to give respect to their effort, and I'm gonna find the song. It's called Party with Quavo and Takeoff. They have a unique sample on there.
Party All the Time by Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, by Eddie Murphy. Yep. And which is a song, by the way, which is kind of funny on its own. But the fact that they took that sample and they made it work to their style of rapping and stuff, I just thought that it was, hey, this song is actually not that bad. So shouts out those two for that, because we already know currently what's been going on with Quavo and Takeoff, where it's kind of like, hey, they're kind of doing the Uncle Few thing. And then the third member of the Migos, who might not be part of the Migos officially anymore, Offset, is kind of doing their own thing. So how do you feel about Quavo and Takeoff's current music run compared to Offset's current music run and the issues that he's been dealing with behind the scenes.
Well, it's kind of interesting, right? Because you have that song Party, which is actually a decent song, probably one of the better songs off of that project. But then you have other songs that they put out as Unconfused that they were kind of, previewing for a little bit. And when
Yeah,
I actually heard those songs, I was kind of like it's to me, it's just not for me, you know?
yeah,
So, I hear about this whole situation with Offset and him essentially wanting to get off QC or, buying his way off of QC, which I think that was kind of an interesting move, seeing as he essentially is trying to do his own thing. He had features from Moneybagg Yo, a couple other people, if I'm not mistaken. I think he had a song with Trippie Redd, right?
yeah,
Recently. So like he seems like he's really trying to branch off and do his own thing. Now, me personally, I think that's good for Offset. I think Offset's actually pretty good at making music. I personally like his music solo. If I were to compare his solo music to the other two, you know,
yeah.
um, but I feel like it's a little weird seeing it go on at the same time because I feel like the Migos as a whole don't have problems with each other, but I feel like there's a lot of business that's getting in the way right now.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think the behind the scenes issues and drama is what's kind of overshadowing the Migos current landscape of music on what they're trying to do. Us as consumers and listeners and that enjoy the music, I think that for us, I think the expectations are going to kind of be shifted differently now because like, hey, all right, Offside Zone, and some people like me, you and I, may be like, hey, we have, we're expecting him to do good on his own, so we might tune in to see how it really is. And then there's other people that might be like, well, the group is done. The music was never good to begin with, and this and a third. So I feel like this is a real turning point for all three members of the Migos career, especially Offset, since he's going solo, and we're going to see if if he's going to be able to capitalize it and pull off something. Like his last two songs that he put out, or three, I guess, because the one with Trippie Redd, they're not terrible songs. They're okay songs, but I think the problem with them is they sound too much like they're Migo-esque songs. And I think Offset needs to evolve his game and get away from the Migo sounding type songs. Quavo Takeoff, it is what it is. You got 2 or 3 out of the Migos, so their music is going to sound more or less Migos like, right? Extension of Culture 3. But Offset, this is an opportunity to be like a totally different artist. I'm not saying that he needs to start singing more or whatever like that. But if he could just really make, hey, this is Offset music, I think that will really benefit him. His issues with QC and all that shit like that, hopefully that shit gets patched up. I know that there's some tension right now between him and his former head of the label, but at the same time, far as like just the music perspective, you just hope that great music could come out of it.
What I will say is that Offset does have a good song that was produced by Baby Keem. And I feel like we didn't give Baby Keem a lot of credit for his album, but that song that he produced is a good song. I will
Yeah.
say that. That's one of the good songs that Offset has put out in the last few weeks since
Yeah,
this whole thing.
I agree with you on that too.
Now, like with other record label business going on, we had a little story that happened a couple of weeks ago. It's weird because with all of the AR and VR things that are going on, Capitol Records decided to come out with an artificial intelligence artist called FN Meka, and a lot of people were upset because some of the first things that FN Meka did was say the N word and get beat up by police. Now, mind you, this is a fake artist that doesn't exist, but this is what they had this artist do. The first fake artist ever in this first week was saying the N word and getting beat up by police. So people obviously didn't like that. So they felt that they were, I would say, I'm not even sure, pandering, I guess, to the people, I guess you would say. But overall, people just didn't like the look of it because, I mean, when you hear that, it probably sounds crazy. So they, quote unquote, cut ties with that artist by the end of the first week that it was signed. And they had a list of artists that they were going to put out behind him that were actually also AI artists, but I'm not sure if that's still going to happen now or not because God knows.
Yeah. I right once I started learning about this virtual reality and artificial intelligence rapper, and I seen like the image of him and all that, I was like, this shit is bullshit. Because I look at it as like, I understand that we're going into an age of technology, so things are going to be different. But this FN Meka dude is not even a dude. This thing, because it's not even
It's fake,
real.
yeah.
Yeah, the FN Meka creation. What I will say is like they were playing snippets of his music, and I'm like, so you're gonna get a fake. You're gonna create a fake artist to play music that's already out from artists that's either well known, or you could go on SoundCloud and discover them,
Right.
or go on YouTube and discover them. And I said, to me, that you're kind of profiting off of the art of the rap game, but you're trying to control it in your own way by not paying people to do the music that you're trying to mass produce.
Well, you saw they supposedly were like fucking the dude out of the money. Essentially, they weren't paying the artist behind the voice.
Yeah, and it was crazy because it was like, oh, it was like two white guys that made FN Manka or whatever like that. And I'm just kind of like, so you're gonna have a an AI rapper, artificial intelligence rapper, who portrays to be black or not. We can't even say he's black. He's artificial intelligence. You know, it's just some created 3D model. You're gonna create him from two white guys, and then you're gonna have him saying the N word and deal with stuff like police brutality and all that. How do you expect anybody to get behind that unless you're an ignorant, stupid kid? And there's a lot of ignorant, stupid kids on social media. But how do you expect people who actually take rap music seriously? I'm talking about the consumers, to get down with that. And I understand that they were already lining up this AI rapper to do features with like real rappers. And of course, the real rappers might do it because they're getting paid.
Right.
But those rappers that are willing to do it to get paid, though, these aren't like your Jay-Z's and your Nas, because they're not going to do music with a fake AI rapper. That kind of goes against what they're all standing about. But the new age rappers that love to sing on autotune and not really rap, they're going to do it because this age right now is all about getting a bag, whether you sell your soul or not.
Right.
So I feel like the FM Meka idea was a terrible idea to begin from. It was 100% pandering to a particular set of crowd, and it was just the labels. This is their first exposure to let people know, hey, we are fucking artists. We're actually going to try to make the same music they make without them, so we can keep all the money for ourselves. And I think it's. I'm glad that this shit did not work out. I hope it does not work out in the future. There's a place for AI and virtual reality and shit like that. There is, but this is not it. Exactly.
Yeah, no, I thought it was bullshit. And, I thought it was weird to see that go on. I thought a better example of seeing a virtual person was She-Hulk. When I watched that episode this week, she was twerking with Mega Stallion. And I know a lot of people online, they're going to get upset and say like, oh, She-Hulk, she's twerking. Oh my God, this is the end of the MCU. Like, shut up. To all those listeners, just shut up. And I understand it's a weird standpoint, I guess, being an MCU fan. But at the same point in time, it's like there's been bad comedy, and this was actually, I feel like, a good show to watch. I've been enjoying the show since it came on, and I feel like people have just kind of been finding reasons to hate on it, and I'm not really a fan of that.
No, I agree with you. I think that, so listeners, let me just say this. I'm not, when it comes to like comic books, Nigel puts me onto a lot of information, a lot of characters and all that stuff. This is due to the long history that we have with each other. And he kind of exposed me to certain things in the world of comic books. So I like the MCU and stuff, and part of that is because of Nigel. If I didn't know Nigel and I saw She-Hulk on the TV, I wouldn't give it a chance. I just don't care for it. It's not my thing. But because of being a fan of the MCU and liking what the MCU has put out, yeah, I gave She-Hulk a chance. And She-Hulk turned out to be, for me, hey, I like this. My expectations were low, and it turned out to be like a show that I do enjoy. I find it a little funny. And the Meg the Stallion scenes, because there was one with her in the courtroom and then the post-credit scene that everybody's crying and bitching about, that to me, it didn't bother me. To me, they're lighthearted segments. One of them is a post-credit scene, meaning like it's not even a part of the actual episode. And they're lighthearted segments that do not have anything to do with the story of the show, that do not have to do anything with the character of She-Hulk moving forward. They're just kind of like cameo Easter egg things. It's like, who gives a fuck? For people, the incels mainly, and random herbs on Twitter that are saying Marvel's over, it's done, cringe. These are people who sit inside the house all day behind a keyboard. These are not people that go out there and live life and can understand this is a lighthearted segment. Like, who gives a fuck? So the way I see it is like, shouts out to She-Hulk, shouts out to Meg the Stallion, and seeing these women twerk on the show, it is fucking what it is. Who cares? Who gives a fuck? If you really did not like it and it hurt your soul, broke you, and cracked your spine, and now you got to shower up and cover up and hide yourself from quote unquote cringe, then eat a dick. That's how I see it. My thing is kind of like, if you fucking did not like it, ignore it and move it the fuck on. It has, it wasn't like Meg the Stallion now is a prominent character in the She-Hulk show. Now you give her powers, and Meg the Stallion now is she's affecting the entire multiverse, and she's in there. She's like Scarlet Witch. It's not like that. She's just a cameo Paris character. Ha ha he he. You like it? Cool. If you don't like it, cool. It didn't warrant all this hate on women. I didn't understand that.
Nah, people, they got to calm down, man. Like they did it in a way that worked in the show. Like, she's not gonna, make a difference on if the Hulk returns to Earth or not. Like, it's not gonna be that serious. Like, it'll be okay. And I feel like a lot of people are getting like this because you had a couple movies that have been bad that came out recently, or movies that people didn't enjoy, like Thor. People didn't enjoy that movie. I didn't enjoy that movie, and they tried to make it overly funny. But this is actually kind of just like tongue in cheek. It was okay. So I think people kind of got to relax.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking forward to She-Hulk episode 4.
So the other night, Serena Williams was playing in the US Open in what everybody thinks will be her last game. She put on a good performance, and she got eliminated in the third round of the US Open. I can't remember the woman's name who she was playing at the moment, so I apologize. But essentially, I think it took about 3 sets to beat her. I'm not overly familiar with tennis. I'm not going to act like I'm a tennis expert, but Serena Williams put up a good performance, but she just couldn't get the win. She's a legend. I think she's the greatest female tennis player of all time, in my opinion, because the other person that compare her to, I just don't think she compares to Serena Williams. And I think it's just, like Michael Jordan compared to anybody else in basketball. It's hard to really get past that.
So, right. Yeah, I agree with you with that, with how you kind of ended that. Just to not disrespect the other woman that beat Serena Williams, even though everybody there at Asher Stadium was rooting for Serena. Nigel and I were rooting for Serena, but the other woman, she, it is what it is. She beat her. So the other woman's from Australia. Her name is Alja. Now, forgive me for mispronouncing your name because I'm not familiar with your name or hear how you pronounce it, or how you prefer to be enunciated. But it's Alja Tomljanovic or Novix. And once again, forgive me for that. I'm purposely not trying to butcher your name. The next time, if we ever speak about this young lady, we will probably say it much better because we will try to find out how to pronounce it. But yeah, she beat Serena. I think their match went on for about 3 hours. We kind of tuned out after 2 hours and a half because they were battling, and they were battling hard. So I think for Serena to lose, and let's say she does officially retire, without having second thoughts. I think this is a good way for her to go out because it wasn't like she got swept and spanked. She battled hard, and then she at the 3 hour mark, she just was like, "Hey, I gave him all. I just can't. It is what it is." So, shouts out to Serena Williams, for sure, a Hall of Famer, for sure, an absolute legend, greatest female tennis player of all time, bar none. Some people make the argument saying she's greater than some of the men, but that, once again, well, let me not say once again because I never said it, but I am not a tennis expert just like Nigel. So I will not sit there and argue with you back and forth. And for listeners who be like, "Oh, well, you just said that she's the greatest female tennis player, bar none, and you're not expert." Yeah, eat a dick. I don't care. So there's a lot of people who don't watch basketball and they know Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant. They're not going to sit there and try to debate with you. "Oh, well, technically, you don't know basketball, so shut the fuck up." I can talk about it. But I'm saying that there are people out there who don't know basketball, and they know that Michael Jordan, LeBron James, these are GOATs. You know what I mean?
Right. Just throwing out names.
Yeah.
So moving from the U.S. to Paris last night, the UFC had an event, a fight night that had a good co-main event and main event that we're going to cover today. It was interesting watching those fights. Yesterday, we watched Clash at the Castle, but we did take out time to tune in into the UFC Paris event. I'm just going to start off with the co-main event, which was Robert Whittaker and Marvin Vettori. Good fight for Robert Whittaker at the least. Robert Whittaker went in there and dominated the whole fight. There wasn't a second of the fight that I thought he lost. He was touching Marvin up. He had him kind of rocked at one point. Yeah, he might have got hit here and there, but nothing significant. Didn't get rocked, didn't get shook. Just went in there and beat him in a 3-0 sweep. I thought it was a very impressive performance for Robert Whittaker, who's already shown himself to be good.
No, I agree with you, Nigel. I think the first round, a lot of people, I should say a lot. The first round of that fight, there were people that scored that round for Vettori. I didn't understand it. I thought it was clear for Robert Whittaker. Whatever. Second round was clear. Third round, I was debating if I should give it a 10-8 or not. I didn't. I kept it as a 10-9. But Robert Whittaker won that fight easily. It was a clean sweep to me. He took Vettori to school. Vettori, there was no chance of him having any significant amount of offense, damage, or any point where he was leading the dance or controlling the fight. Vettori got taken to school. But that being said, though, I think that Vettori proved like, hey, he is a tough out because he didn't get knocked out. You're not going to be able to walk through him. You're going to have to actually beat him like Rob and Israel Adesanya did. You can't just go in there expecting, "Oh, I'm just going to stuff his shots and that's it." No, you got to actually you got to put it on him. But shouts out to Robert Whittaker. He did what he needed to do. Honestly, I do not know who's next for Robert Whittaker. If Derek Brunson beats Jack Hermanson, because that fight's been targeted for later this year, maybe you could do, well, maybe Robert Whittaker could fight the winner of Brunson and Hermanson. I know if Brunson wins, you could kind of do a main event in Australia to do the rematch between Whittaker and Brunson, because remember when Whittaker KO'd him, knocked him unconscious. So maybe I think that's it, because it's kind of hard to sell a third fight with Israel right now between Whittaker. So I think if Whittaker could get, one or two more great wins and performances, I think getting that third fight would be more sellable. But right now, Whittaker needs another fight at least. So shouts out to him for that.
I want to give Robert Whittaker a good shout out for the sneaky right that he kept on hitting him with. He was jabbing him a lot with his left, but really darting him with that right hand. And when he hit him with the right hand, it was like he wanted to put a statement on that every time he hit him. It was very nice to see in that fight. It was crazy watching that fight because I remember I was saying at a certain point, I was like, hey, this is clear that Robert Whittaker is just better than him on the feet. He needs to actually kind of put himself in harm's way a little bit and maybe eat one in order to hit him, because he's not going to be able to hit him just standing on the outside like that. And it's funny because we saw that and he ended up losing the decision in that fight leading into the main event. We had Tai Tuivasa versus Ciryl Gane. And that fight was kind of playing out the same way for a little bit. Like the first round, I thought Ciryl Gane won that fight, won that round, for the majority of it. And I was just looking at it, and towards the end of the first and the beginning of the second, we were talking to each other, and we were like, "Hey, if Ciryl Gane stands in the background like this, he's gonna get hit because Tai Tuivasa is actually gonna go in there and put himself in harm's way in order to try and knock him out, and he
Right.
can, you
Right.
know." So sitting there watching that fight, Tai Tuivasa, surely enough, hey, at one point in time, I'm going to get in, cracked him, knocked him down in the second round, put him on his ass. So then Ciryl Gane, being the fighter that he is, actually picked himself up and started attacking Tai Tuivasa's body. And he found a weakness that he kept on exploiting for the rest of the fight. It was cool to see that because after he exploited that body shot, he really started to pick him apart on the feet, picking apart, punching him, kicking him in the body, kneeing him in the body. And it was ended up pretty much culminating in the third round of him getting a vicious knockout on a counter. And it was just like kind of impressive to see, especially seeing that he was the only thing stopping Paris from getting the full sweep. And he ended it with like the exclamation point of all exclamation points.
Yeah. Shouts out to Ciryl Gane and Tai Tuivasa. They put on a great fight. Obviously, the fight of the night last night. And I'm going to nominate this as a fight of the year contender because it's so much drama of what happened between rounds 2 and 3. So I think it was fantastic. Will it win fight of the year? Maybe not, but I just think it deserved on there. Everybody's talking about the fight, like how exhilarating it was. I think that Dana White sees the dollar signs. Ciryl Gane, like I was saying last night when the fight was on, I think Ciryl Gane is kind of like Paris's Anthony Joshua of boxing, the Tyson Fury of boxing. Like that's their guy right now. And I think that you gotta go back to Paris, and now you got a headline with Ciryl Gane. I think that fight made me be like, oh shit, when he landed that head kick to Tai Tuivasa, because Tai Tuivasa was covering up the body because he was getting fucked up down there. And then once it looked like, when Ciryl Gane went to go throw a kick, Tai Tuivasa picked up on it and thought it was going to be another body kick. It turned out to be clean to the head. Now he didn't get knocked out from it, but I was kind of like, oh shit, it's about to be over soon. And sure enough, it was. So shout out to both men because both men, if it wasn't for Tai Tuivasa trying to turn this fight into a dog fight, the fight could have been a snooze fest because Ciryl was easily outpointing him in that first round. Just
picking him apart.
Yeah. So I just think that that was a great fight. I don't think Tai Tuivasa's stock drop. Of course, he's going to have to take a lesser fight in the rankings, but that's okay. He needs to get a win against a good opponent. Ciryl Gane, I think the next fight for him is Curtis Blades now. I think that's the next big fight for him. He's not going to get the next shot at the belt. I don't care what happens. There's a few guys that you could tell that the UFC wants Francis to fight first. If all things go well with Francis' contract situation. But I think it should be Ciryl Gane, Curtis Blades next. And you could do that, my bad, but you could do that main event again at another Paris fight night card.
You do have to give Tai Tuivasa a lot of credit. That's one thing that I agree with because Tai Tuivasa, without him really stepping in and getting that knockdown, the fight wouldn't have went where it went because it was pretty much either he was going to get picked apart because that's where the fight was just heading, or it would have happened the way it happened with them actually engaging and trying to get the knockout on each other. But that really took Tai Tuivasa because it seemed like Ciryl Gane for a little bit was very comfortable just chilling out. I'm going to leg kick you here, jab you here, point fight you until 5th round and just get a decision. And that he needed that knockout win, especially if you want to be on the road back to a title shot.
I agree 100%.
So
that was because this is the last thing and we're going to move on, but that was kind of like Ciryl Gane's biggest criticism was kind of like, yeah, technically he's the best striker at heavyweight right now. No one is striking like him. No one can hold a candle to him. Even the great knockout artists between Francis Ngannou, who's the current champ, they already beat Ciryl Gane, and Derek Lewis, they couldn't beat him striking. And Ngannou beat Ciryl Gane not through the striking. He had to beat him with wrestling.
Yep.
So I think like there was some criticism with Ciryl, like, yo, he's good, but he kind of has a history of just kind of like coasting a little bit. And Tai Tuivasa essentially awoken the beast, made like, oh shit, he can actually knock people out.
Yeah. So I was pretty happy to see that. So,
Yeah.
Shouts out to both of them for that. So next weekend, or I should say this weekend coming up, because you're probably listening to this on a Thursday or Friday or Saturday, or whenever you decide to listen to this podcast, we have UFC 279.
Yeah.
UFC 279 is a decent card, but we're going to focus more specifically on 2 or 3 fights from the main card, being Kevin Holland, Daniel Rodriguez, Li Liang, Tony Ferguson, and Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz. Well, let's start with Kevin Holland, because we haven't seen him in a few months. And actually, this fight isn't even at welterweight. This is going to be a catchweight fight with Daniel Rodriguez. So I'm assuming they must have agreed to something prior to this fight being made.
I think this is a 50-50 fight. Yes, Kevin Holland is the more popular fighter. I like Kevin Holland. I think he's a good fighter, and he's getting better. I think welterweight should be the weight class that he really puts all his eggs in the basket in, because he's just too small in middleweight. Even though he was winning at middleweight, it's just too small for him. Daniel Rodriguez, he's one of these guys where like he's not known and he's not recognized as much, but he's actually pretty good. He has some good wins. He's a tough out. He beat Kevin Lee, which, Kevin Lee was a contender at lightweight. So I think this is a 50-50 fight. If Kevin Holland gets past Daniel Rodriguez, I think it's time to give Kevin Holland a real top 15 opponent at welterweight. But same thing with Daniel Rodriguez. If Daniel Rodriguez wins this fight, it's time to give him a top 15 opponent at welterweight. Welterweight. My opinion of who will win the fight, I think it's so hard, because to me, this is a pick-up fight. I could see Daniel Rodriguez winning this fight by decision. I truly do. But I could also see Kevin Holland winning this fight by decision or a late finish, like a late TKO. This one is kind of hard, man. It's really hard. I want to say Kevin Holland will win, but he's going to win by like either decision or like a late TKO. I don't see him. If he finishes Daniel Rodriguez within the first or second round, I'll be impressed. But I think this is just a stiffer fight than what it appears on paper.
It's tough, man, because I agree with you in a lot of ways, especially about Daniel Rodriguez. Like, I feel like people don't really know him, but he's been on the undercard kind of tearing some of these like lower fighters up,
Yeah.
And when you're an unknown fighter just tearing up some of these lesser ranked people, it's because you need to be fighting people who are better. And the only thing he hasn't done is fought some better people yet. Like,
well, he fought Kevin Lee. He beat Kevin Lee.
Well, I mean, like,
he beat him convincingly. You got to give him credit for that. I think Kevin Lee is stiff competition. He's not elite or whatever like that, but he's stiff competition. Kevin Lee was the top 10 fighter.
Well, I'm not taking away from Kevin Lee, but I mean like anybody else. Like, that's one person. You know what I mean? So like, he needs to fight more people. I think this is a fight that's in the right direction, honestly, for both of them.
Yeah. Honestly, for both of them, I agree.
So like, I think that this is going to be a good fight. I give it to Kevin Holland just because he's been looking better in these last few fights. He looked really impressive in his last fight. So I think if he is on that upward trajectory, he should be able to win this fight.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, the co-main event, obviously one of the, I'll say, fan favorites of the UFC, Tony Ferguson, is making, I don't want to say welterweight debut, because I think he won the Ultimate Fighter at welterweight.
And I think he won a fight or two at welterweight too before the lightweight run.
Right.
So welterweight return.
Welterweight return against Li Liang. The Leech, but I think he's going to lose this fight. I think Tony Ferguson, he has a little bit more power at welterweight. I think he's going to take shots a little bit better at welterweight. And I think that he's just overall better skilled than the Leech. While I think the Leech has knockout power, and I think that's where he would end this fight, because I don't see him ending this fight on the ground. I think that on the feet, Tony Ferguson can get in and actually probably finish him in a second.
That's interesting, because I'm actually picking the Leech to win by knockout. I think if we're talking about, if this fight took place at the end of the year or took place like early next year, I would favor Tony. I think what people are kind of forgetting, well, not a lot of people, but some people, is Tony's just coming off a bad knockout. This is kind of a quick turnaround against a guy who's a contender at welterweight. Lee Julian, excuse me, the Leech has he's knocking on the door in the top 10 at welterweights. He's a top 15 guy. He's of course he got spanked by Hamzat, but who has it, right?
Right.
He's a top 15 guy at welterweight. He's knocking on the door to being in the top 10. Tony coming down and fighting this kind of, it's good on paper, but at the same time, I just think that the timing and the matchup are kind of bad because the Leech knocks this dude out. Now we're talking about, all right, the Leech maybe him versus Jeff Neal, or I think that already happened, didn't it? And he already beat Jeff Neal.
Yeah, I think he beat Jeff Neal.
Exactly.
I don't know if he beats him right now though.
I don't know. I don't know, and I'm not trying to speculate on who will beat. Well, I'm just talking about how far the fight is. The Leech has beat people. He's knocking on the door to be in the top 10 welterweight. This is kind of a bad time for Tony to take stiff tests after losing 3 or 4 in a row.
Right.
Tony Ferguson, at this point of his career, he needs to take a tune-up fight to see where he's at. This, to me, is not a tune-up fight. This, to me, is kind of like, all right, we're gonna continue to throw him to the wolves, and that's the unfortunate shame of the sport. It can be brutal, and I don't think in this fight, see Tony get knocked out in the first round, but in that second round, he's going to start to get hit, and the Leech is going to KO him. I just think that right fight, wrong time. That's how I see this. So I'm going with the Leech KO round 2.
There's a correction on that. He actually didn't fight Jeff Neal, so I think we're probably thinking about somebody else. So,
Neil Magny, maybe.
Yeah, it was Neil Magny.
Yeah. So did he beat Neil Magny?
Did he beat Neil Magny?
Or he lost?
He lost to Neil Magny.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. That's why I was trying to say, like, hey, look, if Lee Julian wins his fight, he could fight Jeff Neal's. He could fight Stephen Thompson's. He could even fight a Jorge Masvidal. Jorge Masvidal needs a tune-up fight, which in my opinion, he does. Or he could also fight a fucking Michelle Pieta. Like guys knocking on the top 10 door type of fights. I just think that Lee Julian is not a tune-up for Tony Ferguson. I think it's a very stiff fight for him.
That's fair. So with the main event, we have Nate Diaz versus Hamzat, or Hamzat versus Nate Diaz, however you want to put it. I think this main event is very interesting because you have a lot of people who like Nate Diaz. They think Nate Diaz is a good fighter and they enjoy his internet antics. And I think that they see him in some of the things that he does, like rocking Leon Edwards and doing things in the past will lead him to beat Hamzat. And for whatever reason, it seems like because they like Nate Diaz, they're forgetting that Hamzat has beaten almost all of his opponents in the first or second round outside of Gilbert Burns, who they put on a barn burner of a fight. But literally everybody else he's ran through. So I don't really see how Nate Diaz wins this fight. I don't think Nate Diaz is as good as he once was. I think he can still hit people on the feet and probably, maybe rock Hamzat if he's not being careful. Maybe even catch him in a submission if he's not being careful. But that being said, though, that's the only way I see Hamzat losing this fight. I think Hamzat wins first round TKO.
Sonny, I'm choosing Hamzat first round submission. Yeah, I think he's going to. Yes, this sport is very unpredictable. Anything could happen, right? Hence Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman. But I don't think this fight is going to be like that. I think this is going to be a mauling. I think Hamzat is going to take him down, trying to make a point and strangle him and submit him. Yes, of course, this Nate Diaz, so some weird shit could always happen. This is a terrible matchup for him to go out on this contract. Awful. I know people are like, oh, well, Gilbert Burns has success. Gilbert Burns is easily top 5 in the welterweight division, arguably top 3, depending on who you're fucking talking to. This guy, he's dropped the champion. He's dropped Hamza. Like, Gilbert Burns is a monster of a welterweight. He can be a champion. Like, nobody sleep on Gilbert Burns. Nate Diaz, when has he lost? When has he won a meaningful fight for credibility? And what? When's the last time? Yeah, he beat Conor McGregor, but that's more like blockbuster pay-per-view money fight.
And how long ago was that?
That was years.
6 years ago.
Yeah, years.
So I mean, let's not act like that's 2022.
Yeah, he caught Leon Edwards last year, but people love to ignore the first 24 minutes of that fight. Leon was spanking him, pillar to post. People were trying to make up these theories. Oh, Jorge Masvidal was starting to get tired in his fight. Jorge was beating him pillar to post. Eyelid, all meat hanging from his forehead, his eyes. Doctor's like, hey, if we don't stop this, you might not be able to see anymore. Getting fucked up. So I like Nate Diaz. I think him and Nick. I like Nick a lot more. I think those guys are good fighters that talk the right shit and all that. But their fan base is delusional. And I think that this fight here, yes, Nate Diaz and Hamzat may be able to sell a little bit of the pay-per-view because of who they are. This fight is a showcase fight for Hamzat. This is Hamzat's fight to lose. In my opinion, if this fight goes to distance, this is a failure of performance for Hamzat. This is a fight that Hamzat should be finishing Nate Diaz in the first, second round, the absolute latest. But I'm going with a first round submission.
And let's not forget, like, Nate Diaz isn't the young Nate Diaz that he was when he beat Conor McGregor years ago. He's almost, I would say, if he's not 38, he's about to be 38. So it's like, he's not a young fighter anymore.
No, he's not.
With a much younger, hungrier Hamzat, just on the other side, I don't think it looks good for him, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is. It is what it is. This is how Nate Diaz accepted this fight. He really wants to get out of his contract, and some people theorize he wants to get out of his contract because he wants to fight a particular man named Jake Paul. Now, listeners, we, all three of us, Spence included, are not Jake Paul fans on the podcast. We give him credit for actually stepping in a ring and actually trying out boxers because there's a lot of shit. A lot of people won't do that. So we give him credit there. And we actually give him credit of like, hey, yo, he's a celebrity guy that's boxing. We don't have a problem with celebrity boxers. We have a problem with people who talk shit about they could beat the pound for pound bests in the world. And when it comes time to kind of sell their case that they could do that, they're boxing against people who have no business being in the ring. Well, all that could kind of change with this next rumored fight for Jake Paul with him versus Anderson Silva. That may go down in October. A little history, listeners. Jake Paul was supposed to originally fight Tommy Fury, at the top of August or something like that?
Something like that.
He was supposed to fight Tommy Fury because they had this little beef. Tommy Fury's not good himself, but he's 8-0 as a boxer. So that was kind of like the selling point. Well, us at the Highly Advised podcast, we didn't knock that. We thought this is a good test for Jake. He's actually fighting a boxer. Yeah, it's a low level boxer, but that's what it should be. Let's see where his career is going to go. The shit with Tommy didn't work out. So now that fight is in shambles. Now here comes a guy that Jake actually sparred before, named Hasim Rahman Jr., the son of the former heavyweight champion. Now there was a selling. At first, people were kind of like, "Oh, this guy's just brought in to stare at the lights." He's brought into job. The next thing, once they started revealing more about Hasim Rahman, it was kind of like, "Oh, he kind of was tuning Jake up in the sparring, and he handicapped himself." And then Hasim kind of exposed to Jake Paul, hey, look, I was only brought in to help him, not really beat him up, but he didn't really do that great neither with the handicaps that was applied. Jake is solid, but let's not let's not make it seem like he's already a world champion ready. He's not. He hasn't even fought a boxer to begin with. So as that fight was building up, a lot of analysts and a lot of people were predicting, hey man, I don't know. After going deep diving into Hassan's career, he looks like he's going to knock Jake out. Well, that fight fell through. The reason being is because Hassan couldn't make weight, all this controversy, bullshit, da da da. So now Jake doesn't have a fight in August. Fast forward to now October, where he could potentially fight Anderson Silva. Now, once again, people are going to be like, people are hopping on, giving credit to Jake, as I'm going to give credit to Jake. He's fighting somebody who has boxed. Yes, Anderson Silva is 40-something years old. He's now in the prime of his MMA career, but Anderson Silva is 3-0 in boxing after his retiring from MMA. He beat a former world champion, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., who is a bum, but for Anderson Silva in his old age, that's impressive. He beat another bum on a Floyd Mayweather exhibition bout, and then he knocked out Tito Ortiz in another fucking glorified squash. So the way I see it is this is a step up in competition for Jake Paul, and this is good for him because if he beats Anderson, all right, now you step up his competition once again. If he doesn't beat Anderson, the 15 minutes of fame is over. So obviously, listeners, we don't know if the fight is official or whatever, but it's been rumored. A bunch of boxing media sites and MMA sites that cover the sport, they've already put it out there. It's all over Twitter, da da da. And essentially, everybody's just waiting for the official announcement. If I had to go make a quick prediction right now, and I'm gonna let you speak, Donald, because I know I've been speaking a minute on it, just trying to give the listeners a backstory on the shit, is I think Anderson Silva beats him. I'm not going to say knockout. I just think Anderson Silva beats him. If Jake Paul wins, then good for Jake Paul. It'll be a good win, and I'm not going to take it from him. That means beating Anderson Silva means, hey, you should start fighting competition a little stiffer. But we'll see. What do you think on the whole situation, and who do you think will win?
I think that Anderson Silva will win, but I think it is a step up in competition, even if it's slight, because at the end of the day, Anderson Silva, while he might not be a boxer, he is a proven striker in MMA. So it's like, okay, let's see what you can do with this. Now, that being said, I don't think you can really give him too much stripes for knocking out Tito Ortiz in a boxing fight, but we've seen what he can do, right? Because we know who Anderson Silva is. I want Anderson Silva to win just because I think a lot of Jake Paul's antics are his antics. But, I think this is if he wins this fight, then I think we see what happens with Nate at the end of the year, which I think that's a fight that's going to be made regardless if he wins or loses his last fight in the UFC.
In my opinion, I think you could do the Nate fight regardless with Jake Paul. The only reason I say his 15 minutes of fame is up with the Anderson Silva loss, if he gets it, is okay. He can't really compete against somebody who can actually fight. Yeah. But if you want to do a celebrity contest, which was him, that's what it should have been from the beginning. He's a celebrity boxer. Then you could sell that Nate fight. Right. But he's saying there he could be Canelo, he could be Floyd. Like,
that's what we all hate.
Exactly. That's what we're vehemently disagreeing with.
So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. It's only a month away, so I'll be watching it. I won't be paying for it, I can tell you that, but I will be watching it. So
maybe we'll have like a family member or friend that'll buy the fight and we'll check it out or something.
Go to a bar or something like that. Yeah. But nah, I'm not interested in doing that. But unfortunately, right before we started the podcast this morning, we had heard some bad news, and I just read up a little bit more about it recently. The battle rapper Pat Stay has unfortunately passed away. He was stabbed this morning, and we don't know really too much about it. It's kind of happening like as we're recording it, we're kind of hearing more about it. It's just very sudden and unfortunate that happened. And he's a very funny, comedic battle rapper, and I know that especially in the Canada circuit, he was well known. So it's very unfortunate just to hear that news.
Yeah, RP Pat Day. I was entertained from the battles that I've seen him partake in. It was very interesting to see him battle people from the URL or Smack and all that. And seeing him put in on entertaining performances, I guess that's a good thing to say, or entertaining battles is a better thing to say. I I just goes to show like the guy, he was decent enough to compete at the most popular league in America or promotion in America. Shouts out to Pat Stay's friends, family, supporters. Definitely recipes. Definitely condolences. It's very unfortunate that somebody that a lot of people liked has passed away due to unfortunate violence.
Do you have anything else to say to the listeners this week?
The only thing I have to say is make sure you follow us at the Highly Advised Podcast on Instagram, Advised Highly on Twitter, and make sure you subscribe to us at the Highly Advised Podcast on YouTube. Make sure you for sure comment, like, subscribe, tell a friend, check out our YouTube videos. Even if you just chilling out, picking your nose on the couch, just have it running in the background. And you're helping us out, and we want to help y'all out by giving good content, something that can make your day a lot more brighter than what it currently is.
Leave comments so we can know what you like, dislike, what you hate, what you love. Also, if you want to see more She-Hulk content, I am on another podcast called The Media Marvels. Me and my friend Bosch go through all types of Marvel content, and we have another episode coming out soon, I'm sure. Whenever you listen to this, check us out. I think you'll enjoy that. Otherwise, you've been highly advised. We will see you guys next time.
Yep, that's right. You've been highly advised. Shasha.